So the question that brought me here is, what does it mean to be a man? And I'm prone to rant for long periods of time, so I wrote everything out that I wanted to say. And I then practiced reading it. It took me 40 minutes to get through, so there was a little editing and shortening. So I'm going to try to stick to my notes here in standard time. The question, what does it mean to be a man? Well, we have a number of social answers to this already in our culture. And I think what we need is a new answer, but if we're going to have one, whatever we come up with is in the context of those pre-existing, ready-made, and supplied answers. So I'm going to briefly list a few of them just so we understand the context. The most obvious is the real man, or the good man. Under this idea, we're given a sort of public identity that's positive. At least as long as you're a good provider, you're going to work as a good man and work and work and work, and you're not going to complain. You will not acknowledge pain. You might get injured. You won't have emotions other than pride in being a workhorse and determination in being a workhorse, and sort of pleasure in being a service robot. Your worth is the same as a farmer's plow horse. The updated version of this, because it's quite an old model, is all exactly the same as that except without a positive identity in the bargain. Your work on behalf of, say, family is now transformed into oppression of family. Your accomplishments are reframed as subjugation of those who are benefiting from your work. It's not so much glamour and power of the patriarchy as pick up that shovel and you might die on the job. But at least you're a real man, at least as long as you are not used up yet and ready to be taken out to the garbage. That's just one angle of one possible social angle of what being a man is. Maybe you're not into this old school patriarch idea. We have another recently popularized term called rape culture. And this is one of the popular ways to tell men that their sexuality is corrosive and predatory and it's a blight on the human race. Your penis is a disgusting and terrifying weapon of war. Your male spirituality is primitive, brutal, and violent, and it's a caveman implement of pain. Now, I don't need to refute this, and neither do you, but this is a public fantasy that you are expected to tolerate without complaint. The falsehood of this myth is visible in the fact that this is used as a lash to drive obedience and silence of men, and apology for non-existent offenses that most men never even dreamed of committing. Now, everything I just said is vulgar, but it leads us to another view of what a man is. The popular myth that I iterated through is abusive towards men, and it's also histrionic. But it's delivered on places like college campuses with the knowledge that the men attacked by that story are not socially allowed to defend themselves. Now, I'm reminded of a young man in Toronto at one of the first, cafe lectures featuring Dr. Warren Farrell. That man was there trying to find an answer so that he could understand the suicides of two of his friends. And a very beautiful young woman, who might have been his classmate, singled him out for verbal abuse and told him he was a rape apologist, a misogynist, and he was a piece of scum, and then she spat on him. Now, I say this next thing with no intention of cynicism. At least from that, he learned maybe some insight into the possible causes of his two friends' deaths. And she told him all these horrible things about himself in a supreme confidence that nobody would offer any rebuke to her, because men are the protectors of women. Not a single person rebuked that lovely young girl, nor any of her friends, which included many members of a Canadian labor union who were also there flinging abuse at everybody not within their group. The idea is that men and boys heaped with scorn, denied their humanity, should take it and smile because they're men. And while tolerating this sort of climate of abuse, they're still expected to protect their attackers from harm and serve them and woo them and cater to them and so on. But each of these pre-existing answers to the question of what it means to be a man, and I will suggest that every answer we have, these ones and every other one that we have now as part of our culture, are defective and defunct. The male servant is defunct. The man as provider is obsolete and despised. The male, the sexual boogeyman is defective, obsolete, as well as the man as a sexual marionette to exchange his income for gratification. These are all social and cultural dead ends, which leaves only the most masculine quality of creativity and invention. I believe, with respect to my friend Eddie here, that men must reinvent themselves, but not to satisfy anyone else's fantasy or political ideology, nor to satisfy any social or economic needs of somebody else's petulant whim. All those paths are played out, and they lead nowhere. I think men must define themselves for themselves without shame and without apology, and without regard for the slow learners who might be in the class, freaking out that they don't understand or they find themselves in unfamiliar territory. But fortunately, men do not need to be told this because they're already doing it.